26 here on 102.7 WMOM, and live with us in the studio again is Mitch Foster, the city manager of Ludington. Good morning, sir. How you doing this morning?
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing okay. And Mayor Barnett, he is with us as well. I just have to grab the mouse that will click over to him, and there we go. Hey, you're on. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I appreciate it.
Hey, not a problem. Thanks for coming in, both of you, this morning. By the way, for our listeners, they can listen to this on your radio as well as watch it on our Facebook page, on your smart devices like your Amazon Alexa, your Google Home, streaming at WMOM.FM, and of course on YouTube too. Mayor Barnett, you had a chance to experience Gus Macker as the mayor. How did that go? Take us through that.
Well, after the opening shots, it went well. And the S means there was at least 4 of them, and maybe my distance from the basket decreased with each shot. But eventually, we were able to start the weekend, and I think people were relieved. So I know I was.
Well, and how many shots did you take?
4-ish, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a good number.
That's all right. And I think that's the fun part about it, is that Gus Macker is it's just kind of a kickoff of that weekend. You have fun activities. You had multiple mayors there from the past.
Oh my goodness,
which was kind of cool to see that.
It was great.
And would you do something again? Not Gus Macker wise, but would you try a half court shot or a free throw shot or anything like that in the future at all?
I would try, an emphasis on try, but if it was for a good cause, we'll give it a shot.
All right, Mitch, how are you at basketball?
I can play. However, last year at Macker, I tore my Achilles.
Oh, that's right.
So I decided not to play this year for obvious reasons.
That's all right. Well, we're glad that Macker was here. Mm-hmm. I think there is a lot of people that are glad that, I won't say a lot of people, but there are a portion of people that glad that Macker is gone. Mm-hmm. But I'll be frank, there's been a lot of people even messaging us here at the radio station say, hey, you guys should take the baton and try to organize Macker. And I'm like, my gosh, I can barely sleep. So, Mitch, it's gone, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's at this point in time, we have been told by Macker that they are no longer coming back. Right. This was their decision. They had the opportunity to apply kind of separately for an event outside the chamber. They came in, met with the committee, and after talking about it, they sent me a phone call and said, thanks, but no thanks. We're all set, and we'll find a different location moving forward.
There was a rumor. I love rumors, right?
Of course.
Okay. There was a rumor that they were that there was a meeting that they walked out on. Did that happen?
Not a meeting involving me, at least.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. So, we...
I will say the meeting the Parks and Recreation meeting, they did, they got up and left after their presentation.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily just get up and leave, like walking out, like upset. They just got up and walked out because they had driven up from the Greenville area.
Okay, yeah. All right. So it wasn't necessarily tension that was there.
No.
How realistic is it if somebody, and I know the chamber led this and such, but the city very involved in this, and I think it would be good to maybe debunk some of the things that were out there, and if you don't mind, if an organization or a group were to try to organize this and bring it back or continue it, how realistic is that, number one? Number two, how financially crippling is it to them from the city standpoint, if you don't mind?
Yeah, it's not an easy event to put forward. Just to clarify, essentially Macker is a franchise. Macker headquarters gives the permissions to different events to host, but is all on the locals to do all of the logistics, spend all of the money. You're required to ship the baskets here. You pay for all of that. You pay for the balls to come here. A lot of things. Our local Macker had 400 volunteers to participate. You have to find a location. You have to pay for the location. It's everything is on the locals, and so for someone to take that over would be a huge venture. And I think the big kind of, from my perspective, the nail in the coffin for Macker as an organization doing what I would refer to as a corporate style event was that the school district and all of the athletic teams and coaches just said, we don't need to do this anymore, and our teams are exhausted from doing this for 32 years.
Yeah, and that is kind of shocking because in most cases, the sports teams, the clubs, organizations, they're always looking for funding, but there is kind of an abundance of dollars in the area right now with the improvements and the construction and everything like that. And as well, obviously, some exhaustion. It's a long weekend. It is a long weekend.
Yes, it is.
What about this, Mr. Mayor? If that group, and again, throwing some feelers out there, if a group came up and said, hey, we would like to be able to have it at Stearns Beach, same place where it's been before, do you think the city would be open to that? Or would it be, some hesitation? What do you think?
Well, I think it depends on what the plan were, because the devil's in the details on all events, really, and how do those things happen, and what resources are going to be needed, and what costs for those resources are going to be needed. So I realize I'm tap dancing around your answer, but it's not a yes or no answer necessarily. Mm-hmm. There's a lot, as Mitch has said, there's a lot that goes into it, and I know that. It's been a great event for 32
mm-hmm.
years. It's been a wonderful thing for the city of Ludington, and no one wants to see a wonderful thing happen. But as things change and morph, and availability of volunteers and officials and all of those things, and costs go up, and costs, frankly, borne by the city, and a lot of these things go up. We need to make some decisions, and so we'd be open to talking about any event really that comes in, but we got to do the math. It's like everything else.
Yep.
Speaking of the math, what happens now to that weekend, Mitch, in regards to the cash flow that comes in from the tourists and that bump, if there was a bump, and so on and so forth? Does it now put some a little bit of work on the shoulders of the city or the DDA or the chamber to say what do we put in place if we put something in place, because every week or weekend here we have some sort of activity
right.
to attract people.
Yeah, I don't think it's out of the question that you would just see something naturally pop up. It's Father's Day weekend, so
Mm-hmm.
to say that something wouldn't happen will be interesting to see, because right now when Macker happens, it's Father's Day weekend. You have groups of people that leave town that are local. You have other people that won't come to town that might stay for a week at a time because Macker's booked up. Hotels are able to charge a little bit more because it is Macker for 2 or 3 day minimums. Mm-hmm. But do all the businesses benefit from Macker? I think that's a big question that the DDA and Chamber are trying to answer. And so moving forward, I think it might just be a kind of an open weekend, but it also might be something that, all of a sudden we have a new event or new situation comes forward that is reviewed by the organizations and by the city as well.
That brings up one of my final questions about Macker in general is there wasn't a tracking of this, the economic bump over the years. There's no data or records or research out to the hotels and stuff. That didn't happen at all, that you can say, hey, this is what we had from this.
I think the Chamber and CVB can probably pull the hotel motel data, but it's difficult on restaurants and those sorts of things to be able to pull that stuff easily. And retail establishments, because again, they just get so busy during the summertime that trying to pull one weekend versus another is difficult. But I think what I would point to is you look back to COVID years when we didn't have Macker. They had just as big of a June as they'd had in previous years, and hotels actually saw increases in rentals. So I think we're going to be okay. I don't think this one weekend is going to make or break a year, but we can try to figure out how we can fill it.
Yeah, and you think there will be a focus on that?
I think there will be a focus on trying to make sure that whatever was lost from Macker is backfilled. Okay, all right. If you're just joining us, we're talking with the Ludington City Manager Mitch Foster and as well the Mayor Mark Barnett this morning. Mr. Mayor, we have a meeting tonight. Let's talk about what's on the agenda and what we can look forward to there, or something that you've got some highlighted things on the agenda. What's one that we should be talking about?
Well, I think probably the elephant in the room is paid parking at Stearns Beach, and so that's definitely going to be an issue that's discussed, and a lot of opinions really on whether we should be doing that or whether we should not. So I think that's one of the events or one of the issues going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about awarding a bid contract for the Cartier Park bathhouses and some other issues. But really, probably the biggest point of conversation is going to be the paid parking.
And since the initial meeting, where I guess quite a few people attended is there, you think people's stances do they remain the same at this point in regards to that? Is it majority don't want paid parking, or hey, it's okay, and we see the justification for that revenue?
I think that people have pretty much made up their mind. It's a yes or no, on or off, white or black, kind of a thing. I mean, it's one way or the other. And what I hope is that regardless of what happens tonight, whether a vote or whether additional information is gathered or whatever we can do, the underlying issue and the reason we're even talking about this is there's got to be a way to maintain the beach that to its present condition and welcome people there to use that beach, but then also attend to some other issues, some less sexy, less noticeable kind of things. And the one that I think of is something that people complain about for years, and that has been, what are we doing and how are we going to maintain and improve our local streets? And to me, that's the issue. Mm-hmm. And so if we can find a way or a number of ways to go through and to gain more to gain some revenue that's not just borne by the city of Ludington to maintain the beach, but then at the same time use those local funds, to maintain the local streets. To me, that's really what the goal is.
Can you earmark? I guess you can, right, Mitch? Those parking fees can pretty much go wherever, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. City council could decide, hey, we are going to earmark and set aside these in a assigned account or restricted account so that they are used solely and for the only purposes of maintaining Stearns Beach, or Stearns Park, I should say. They could also say we're going to use these to build a Ferris wheel. I mean, really, at that point in time, it's council's decision. But a council would have to make that decision in the future to then un-earmark or unrestrict those funds to place them back in kind of the general pot.
When we're talking about parking in general, a weekly, let's kind of break this down, if you don't mind. A weekly parking, Monday through Thursday, let's say, parking. Is there where all the spots are consumed during the summer? I don't necessarily, I'm not down there during the daytime all the time or evening, maybe a sunset here and there. But is it so packed that you can see a ton of revenue coming from the weekdays? That would be my first question.
I think you would see enough revenue to earn money off of that, not just to maintain it, but also to make money off of that. Yes.
Okay. So because we already know the weekends, it's there's a lot of parking there, or there's a lot of spaces that are filled down there.
Yep.
And that's so it wouldn't necessarily be event based or anything like that. It would just be straightforward park if this goes through parking potentially year round.
No, I would guess it would be sometime along the mid-May to mid-October timeframe.
Okay. And then would it change rates for a special event activity that's in town or anything like that?
Those would all be the details that council would have to determine once they, if and or when they decide to say yes to moving forward. Once we would have a vendor on, we would work through those details, because there are a lot of kind of circumstances like that we would have to treat kind of special one-off type deals.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't know if this is possible. I'm just going to throw it out there. And again, it's wild, crazy Chris idea. But could you even weekly, as a supportive model, we don't have Friday Night Lights anymore, right? Live. Could this be weekly? A small percentage goes to a charity that week, and the next charity next week, and so on and so forth. Can the city do something like that?
That I'm not sure about right offhand, because they wouldn't be tax dollars, but they'd be fees. I don't know the answer right offhand.
Okay.
The ARPA dollars are one thing because they were federal and they had unrestricted use. These dollars would be a little bit different.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe something to look into, and that because you've got people that are going to be polarized on both sides. Don't want the parking, but also if the parking's going to happen, are we going to see benefits from it?
Right.
And that's where the mayor said about roads and and such there. Speaking of roads, we had a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Mayor, that the new chief of police, he had mentioned a couple of adjustments to some parking signs and such, but that's been adjusted back. He said, he heard from, and he and I had a chance to have a small conversation on this, and he heard from the community, and it was important for him, Chris Jones, to hear from the community and say, you know what, I can change my decision on that. That's important in somebody in a public office like that, right?
Yep, I think it's important for him to, as he's doing a really good job of getting around and meeting people and understanding issues and that kind of thing. This is one of those opportunities, coming in and just looking at current recommendations in terms of traffic control device placement and just making a clinical recommendation to being able to listen to the concerns of the citizens and listen anecdotally to the things that have been impacted by having those in place, gave them a different perspective. And I think, it's just part of it. Anytime a person goes in a new position, there are those things that they look at, and they maybe see them different a year from now that they saw them when they first came in. I know I went through the same thing, and I think everybody does.
Absolutely. And one more thing about the parking, if you don't mind. Can that be voted on tonight? Is that part, that measure might just go into effect, obviously in the future, but could be voted as a yes or no tonight?
Yes, and in that they would just essentially say either yes, let's move forward, let's start drafting an RFP to get a system together, or no, we're done. Let's put this, put this on the shelf.
And tonight is the night that you think that's going to happen.
I think there's a high likelihood from what I'm hearing and the perspective I've got. Yes.
Is there a cost to this that the city has already looked into, or is that the next step?
No, we know the first year costs. We know the subsequent at least 3-year costs as well.
Okay. So do you mind me asking those two numbers?
Sweet.
Okay, thanks. Well,
I'm trying to think. I didn't think this would come up today.
Sorry.
So, if I remember right, and the mayor may have something a little bit different, Mark. If you know, I believe year one we were looking at somewhere around $48,000 to $50,000.
That's the number that.
And then subsequent years you were somewhere around $5,500 to $7,500. It was a pretty significant drop because you're not buying the kiosks. Okay. And again, that was going off of just a sticker-based system. Okay. If it was a license plate reader, which you would then do it by your license plate, you would do it on an app or something else, as well as a kiosk. It was about $30,000 more because then we'd have to buy an actual license plate reader system for a police or beach patrol vehicle as well.
Okay, and revenue each year. I know I've asked this from you before.
$225 to $240 at the low end. Okay. Again, Muskegon assumed they would be at revenue about $500,000, and they're at over $1 million now. So it's really tough to try to gauge. Even right now, we could go drive to the beach, but I don't think I legally can run every plate in the beach to say they're local, they're from Manistee or whatnot. So it's very difficult to try to estimate.
Okay. And when you talked to Muskegon and other areas, did they say that there was a change in the traffic flow, tourist, local, stuff like that?
The thing for most of these communities is once these systems went into place, there was a lot of pushback from a number of people. And then a couple years into it, that pushback left. Okay. And they were able to put money back into those facilities, and so people were happy. All right. Again, but each community is different. Ludington is different than each of the communities that we have surveyed and talked to. And so Ludington may make a different decision because City Council has that right.
All right. We're talking with the City Manager, Mitch Foster, and Mayor Barnett here on Mom FM. Mitch, your opportunity to throw something out there that's going to be on the agenda tonight. And we encourage people to come out to the meetings, of course, 6 p.m. at City Hall. Let's talk about one of those items, if you don't mind.
Yeah, one is an OPRA. So the city received an application for an Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act certificate from Caleb Vischer, who owns Vischer Construction on South James Street. He went through the process, was awarded a grant through the state of Michigan, and now we are at the final meeting where council will look to potentially approve his OPRA certificate, which will allow him to make big investments into his property, but cap his property taxes is what he's currently paying. So for him, it's a great way that he can kind of save costs in the long run. And for the city, we see value in the increase in that property appeal look. He's adding rental units upstairs and improving them. So even though we might not see the full value increase of what he's putting into the property right away, it's still going to be a huge benefit to the community.
All right, and so that's discussion tonight.
No, so actually tonight is the public hearing over the Oprah certificate, and then there's a vote on it by City Council.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
We've got on the agenda tonight the tax levy for the DDA millage, tax levy for police pension, tax for operating millage. When we hear the word tax, that always gets us nervous. What's going on?
Yep. So tonight is the first introduction of all of those different millages and levies, as well as the setting of a public hearing for the truth in taxation public hearing. So if you remember back in the day with Proposal A, local governments and school districts were capped on the amount of increase that our taxes could go up. With the Headley Amendment, it allowed for a truth in taxation hearing. So if all of a sudden, right now the way it works is we can't raise more money through revenues than net new construction unless we do a truth in taxation hearing.
Okay.
But the way that works is, so if in 2022 we raised X and here's what our tax rate levy was, and we want to stay at X or gain revenue because of increase in property values, but we have to have a truth in taxation hearing to keep our tax rate the same, or else our tax rate goes down just to keep it at the same exact amount of revenue. So the truth in taxation hearing essentially allows our tax rate to not change at all, which to the city, if we were to start dropping our tax rate every single year, our millage rate every single year, we don't get that back. Like, we can't just raise the millage rate. We've never raised the millage rate, at least in the time I've been here. Police pension, that's one thing, but the general operating millage we've never raised.
And so residents and businesses, should they see any differences?
They will,
here?
only based on their property value increases. So if your property value went up, you're going to pay, it looks like as of right now, you would pay a little bit more in taxes. But again, that's based on the value of your home.
Okay, all right.
Or business, I should say.
That makes complete sense. Mr. Mayor, the city is in the middle of summer. Things that you're looking forward to. We already had the Love Ludington weekend. We've had Macker. We've got the 4th of July around the corner. Anything that you're encouraging those listeners and viewers to make sure that they come and check out?
Well, I think the 4th of July and the various festivities that are going to be going on downtown are a huge deal. People just love it. The fireworks at the beach, people just love those. And I don't know that anything I would say or not say is gonna change that one blip on the in terms of the number of people who are coming. There's always been great crowds downtown. There's always been great crowds at the fireworks, and just look forward to another one this year.
All right, and I say this because it was a good experience for a lot of people during the Love Ludington weekend. They kind of you could hear the conversations. People got that little itch about, hey, we should do this more often or again. Do you see some of those kind of activities returning to the downtown, maybe on a limited version?
I would bet if I were a betting man, I would put money on doing at least one event per year, and that's just my own personal opinion. But I just know that there's interest out there. There's energy about wanting to pursue something like that on Love Ludington weekend.
Okay, and Mitch, the only real major negative of that was we burned a little bit of a rooftop there, right? And had some damage up there.
Yep, the DDA and the fireworks folks are working through with the masons. Yep.
Okay, and it's hopefully a good relationship there that they're working through. Mm-hmm. But the city understood that, or the chamber DDA, that hey, if there's some damage, there's going to be some responsibility taken from the city, right?
That's why we require and pull insurance for everything that we possibly could. Okay. We make sure that we're covered whenever a circumstance pops up.
All right, and people who have said in those conversations are out there about, well, why did they put fireworks out? It was kind of a toasty weekend, but you had a lot of firefighters around the area. But What is the response to that, if you don't mind?
So Fire Chief Henderson, he and I were in contact for the entire week leading up to those fireworks to make sure. Those warnings and notifications were for forested areas, and this was going to be in a downtown area in which they were covering each of the rooftops neighboring that with fire retardant foam, as well as kind of a blanket system on top of the Masons building. Unfortunately, there were some missed spots on the Masons building that we're dealing with now, or that the insurance carrier is going to be dealing with now. But all the other buildings, not a single issue. And also, what I would point out is this year we didn't have any reports or concerns of kind of the fireworks debris falling down.
Okay.
So I think the location actually worked out really well. But, I mean, as we can see with yesterday's torrential downpour and today's rain, leading up to 4th of July, we'll be in a lot better place, I think, for everybody's comfort level. But last, with the Love Ludington weekend, we had worked quite diligently leading up to it to make sure everybody was safe.
All right. Good response there. We appreciate you clarifying that. Anything else that we should talk about from your angle? And as well, we'll follow up with the mayor before tonight's meeting.
I just always, anytime we get to the busy season, I always like to remind folks, locals, visitors, whomever it may be, if there is a pedestrian in the crosswalk, they have taken one step in the crosswalk, stop for them. That is your legal responsibility as a driver. Drive safely on our roads, pay attention to pedestrians and bicyclists, and also bicyclists, stay off of the sidewalks in downtown. You're not supposed to be on those. We have people that are elderly, that are walking with some sort of a disability or handicap. So having a bike or a skateboard down there isn't the safest thing. So please be cognizant of other people around you.
And that starts at what area? Because we literally had while you were talking, we had a bicyclist go past us out here. But where is that start to finish of that you would say? And the second question is there an effort to post some additional signs there?
So we've started putting painting some stencils on the sidewalk at the intersections. Okay. Mark might have the exact locations better than I do, but I think I think it might be Harrison to Rath, but I'm not sure, and it's all the way down James Street.
Okay.
But I can't be certain for that right in front of me right now.
All right, and there is, that safety, Mark, in regards to somebody coming out of a storefront, whipping around the corner, so on and so forth. That can be very dangerous in the downtown area.
Oh heavens, yes! Skateboards, bicycles, that kind of thing, scooters. And the great thing about Ludington is there's a place down at the end of the avenue for them to ride, and at least the scooters and the skateboarders. Bicyclists, they have just ample places to be able to operate, but sidewalks, as Mitch has said, is just not the place.
And we're not a tremendous, and I'll say this very lightly, a bicycle-friendly city in regards to a lot of bicycle lanes that we have out there, and it's very difficult to be able to construct that the way the city is set up, right? Is that fair to say, Mayor? We'll start with you.
I think you're right. I think that there's a lot that could be done. There's been some discussion in years past about reconfiguring Ludington Avenue east-west and providing for some opportunity or some space to ride bicycles in. Of course, that has an impact. It's like every time you pull a string, it moves something else. So, it's important to at least look for ways. And of course, there's always east-west side streets, north-south side streets, other than Ludington Avenue and other than James, that we would refer people to make their way from point A to point B. So, just some thoughts, some trip planning, that kind of thing. Not making just spur-of-the-moment decisions to hang a right here, hang a left here, and not look around. All of those things that go in the operation of any of those things, bikes, scooters, skateboards, stuff like that.
All right, sounds good. Meeting tonight, 6 p.m. at City Hall. Yep. We appreciate both of you, as always, coming in and chatting with us. If you've missed any of this, for our listeners and viewers out there, it's archived at our Facebook page as well as our YouTube channel. Check that out when you can. But as always, we encourage you to be involved in your city government, those conversations that happen, being able to step into that public comment before or after the meeting, and be able to know what's going on around you, because I think that helps a lot of the rumors that happen out there, and obviously this segment hopefully clarifies some of it as much as possible. For those that want to engage with this and have a question for us for the future, certainly you can submit that at our Facebook page or our website and do that. Mr. Mayor, thanks for coming in. We appreciate you.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. And Mitch, thank you for coming in as well.
Thank you as always, Chris.
All right, you got it. It is 8:55 here on 102.7 WMOM. Stick around. More music on the way, plus news and weather at the top of the hour on WMOM.